Oh, hold on.
Cutting for the net, upstairs, Bardown, goal. Don't love Malkin.
What's up and welcome back to Bardown Talking Hockey episode number 175, presented by the Barroom Network. It is the home of everything related to the greatest sport in the world, the NHL. My name is Vinnie Parisi, and I still believe the New Jersey Devils are going to win the Stanley Cup. And this right here, this is Frankie Mueller, and he is the king of all beans, wearing his Wisconsin plaid hat. Frank!
I love this hat.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. No, I
Bad
really
John.
like this hat a lot. I like your
John.
hat too.
Thank you. Where'd I get it?
I think I remember you getting that at Headhead.
I did get it
I
at
remember
Hat.
correctly. You
That
got a
is
lot of
correct.
cool ones at Headhead. I like the bags one you got. That one you got at Headhead too.
I did.
How many hats would you say you have gotten from Headhead?
5. I think I got this one, the bags one, the White Sox one right here, the bags one. That's 4. I feel like I'm missing one.
So you've double dipped before.
I've double dipped twice.
I don't think I've ever double dipped. Maybe once. Maybe once.
Maybe only once. No, just once. The Pats and the bags.
The Devils one I got you is from Door County,
That might be what I'm thinking of,
but it wasn't one.
but
that
I
you
didn't
bought.
buy it. Yeah. I
Okay.
didn't buy it. Well, I love hats. I love wearing hats. I'm wearing a hat almost always. Frank, one of my two favorite teams to wear hats for are teams we're going to be discussing in period number 1. Welcome to period 1, Frank.
Howdy, Tom.
Howdy, Tom. Welcome to the program. So thrilled to be here. Frank, we're going to go over our 2 favorite teams in the first portion of this show. Not too much on either one, but I want to just kind of get your early feelings on these 2 teams. A little bit up and down for one of them, mostly down for the other. Not really, though. We'll get into it, but we'll start with the Chicago Blackhawks. We're a handful of games in, played a couple home games now. It's been there are times where it feels like it's mostly down. There have been some good moments. What are your thoughts on the Chicago Blackhawks through their first handful of games?
Yeah, Connor Bedard's been fun to watch. He hasn't been able to light up the goal column too much as I'd like him to be. Just has the one goal on the year, but 6 helpers to go along with that to tie him in the team lead for points with Seth Jones and Teuvo Teravainen. Speaking of Seth Jones and Teuvo Teravainen, Teuvo looks like he's back at home in Chicago. He's been great. Seth Jones offensively is having an unreal start to the season. He's already got 7 points. This time last year, he only had 3 points and 1 goal and 6 points this year so far. Last season, it took Seth Jones 31 games before he got his first goal. So that's good to see that from him. Now, defensively, even on the power play lately, he's looked horrible. Or at least against the Canucks, he looked really bad defensively. But offensively, he's been cooking. The Blackhawks, as a team, they've been decently competitive. Slow starts have been hurting them a lot. The opener against Utah saw them have a slow first half, and then they were better the second half of the game, but they were buried and they really couldn't dig themselves out of a hole. The game against the Canucks most recently, another slow start, giving up a goal 21 seconds into the game, but then they settled down later in the game, but it was just too late at that point. The stuff I've liked from the Hawks so far is their special teams. It's off to a hot start, It's very early in the season, but the Hawks power play is already 27.3%, 8th best in the NHL so far. Some of the veterans on this Hawks team has, helped the special teams a lot. Penalty kill is also in the top half of the league. So that's a huge plus as well. All in all, 2-4-1 through 7 games. It's kind of what I expected out of this team to start the year, right? If I had to predict their record through 7 games to start the season, this is probably the record that I would have come up with. It's like the chalk record, you could say, through 7 games for this team, in my opinion. But all in all, there's been some flashes of moments that have made me want to pull my hair out, especially during that Buffalo game, because I really believe that's a game they could have won. But I like the competitiveness that I've seen out of this team so far. And I think this team is way better than they were last year that they're putting out this year. And, it's fun to watch the competitiveness because I know what's coming in the future.
So I have a little bit of a worry that I'm not like locked into this take at all.
Okay.
But I have a little bit of a worry after watching a couple Blackhawks games. The worry is that Connor Bedard, I'm worried he's not a center long term. And listen, Crosby and Malkin both stunk at faceoffs early in their career too. It's not even just faceoffs. It's the fact that he is like brutally outplayed in anything that makes him a center. And he provides a crap ton of offensive chances, whether it's for himself or others. The goals will go in. I'm not worried about the fact that, he's got 2 goals in his last 19 games going back. I don't care about that. He's got like 8 points in 8 games. Like he's a gifted offensive player. If he were to ever move to the wing and become a full-time winger, then he's Nikita Kucherov, right? Like he could have 120 points as a winger and be a dominant force in that way. But then you're missing a number 1 center in the rebuild because Frank Nazar, great. I still think he's a winger long term. A couple other guys we know that if Oliver Moore comes to the NHL, that's a winger long term for sure. Even more than Nazar or Bedard. I hope Bedard ends up being a center long term and kind of gets rid of this intrusive thought that kind of crawled into my brain. It was literally during last game. I was like, he just gets, and I know he's still got a lot of growing to do physically and all that, but it's just like some of the stuff that goes on in the defensive zone. I'm like, do you really ever get that coached out? I don't know. We'll see. I hope so. But I'm a little worried about Bedard in terms of his long-term center playing. That doesn't mean he won't be an MVP or a top 5 player in the league. What do you think of Kucherov? Does he get any knocks on his life because he's a winger? Same thing with Patrick Kane over the years. The problem is there's no Jonathan Taves in this organization right now. There's just not. I don't love what I'm seeing from Tyler Bertuzzi at 5-on-5. And the power play is a menace. It's hard to argue that against him being like a top 5 net front presence on the power play in the entire NHL. But at 5-on-5, he's basically been irrelevant. 0 points through the first 7 games at even strength. That's no bueno from the guy you signed for 5 years or 4 years at whatever amount of money. You need more from Bertuzzi at even strength. I like what I've seen from Teravainen, especially on the power play, but I think it's time that some of these guys really start getting going at even strength. Someone asked Taylor Hall in the locker room after the game on Tuesday about the power play, like kind of knocking it, and Taylor Hall's response was like, well, we scored a goal. Like, you scored a power, like, you're not going to get more than 1 power play goal in 90% of games that you play. Mm-hmm. So the power play is far from a worry. I'm not worried about that at all. Would I put Hall on the top unit with Bedard? I probably would. But then again, like, who do you take off? Do you take off Teravainen and put him on the second unit and try to get them going a little bit? It's possible. I don't know. Hall's also not fully healthy. He said so himself. Like, he's healthy, but he's still like trying to get his body back. He played like 7 games last year. People forget that. Basically was off for, 10 months or whatever it was, recovering from his injury. But do I think the Hawks are better than they were last year? Yes. But is it by like 10 points in the season standings by the end of the year? Yeah, it probably is, because I look at the rest of the division and I see Winnipeg still hasn't lost. The Minnesota Wild, we're going to get to them in a minute. Neither of us had them in the playoffs. Probably. You did? You put the Wild in the playoffs? Okay, well, you're probably feeling nice and good with that prediction. Obviously, Colorado struggled a little bit, but they're still Colorado. They're better than the Blackhawks. Nashville, I don't know what to make of Nashville. We're going to get a thriller tonight. Bet the over in that game, in my opinion. But it's been up and down. I'm a little worried about the Blackhawks. I'm not going to lie. There are a couple things that I've seen on the ice that I'm just like, I hope this gets fixed soon, because you can't be as bad as you were last year again. This year, I think there needs to be some kind of improvement with the roster that they have. Like, Brody's been mostly terrible. I don't love the way Seth Jones played against Vancouver. He was awful against Vancouver. I don't care that he had a power play assist. Like, he was awful against Vancouver. Most of the team was. The people that worry about Bedard, though, in terms of his like status as an offensive player, crack me up, because I know that because of the CHSN blackout, they're not actually watching the games. Because, okay, he doesn't have he hasn't scored a lot of goals. He's created tons of chances for himself and others. As he gets better, bigger, stronger, the offense he'll be one of the top 10 offensive producers in the NHL. I have little to no doubt about that, if he's not already right now. That no-look pass he made to Teravainen against the Sharks, and then Teravainen made the pass to I think it was either Bertuzzi or Foligno in front of the net. Both of them have been really good on the power play in that sense. I'm like, that stuff you can't teach, and just anybody. Like, only Connor Bedard can do that. We'll see how it goes going forward, but I need them to have like a good game tonight against the Predators. Otherwise, I'm going to be kind of all over them in a negative way. Like, even if Bedard is good, that's really the only truly thing that matters. But is Kevin Korchinski just, another high-end offensive defenseman that can't defend for crap, and he's mostly a liability in your lineup? We'll see how it goes for Rockford this year. I think things are trending in the right direction for those guys down there, but it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward. I like that the veterans are scoring goals, even if it is on the power play. But at even strength, I need to see so much more.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the Connor Bedard thing could be attributed to like his time in the league? Do you think that could change over time? Maybe in a couple years, guys get their third, fourth year.
What Connor Bedard thing are you referring to?
The center.
It very well could. It depends on how the rest of his game goes. He was touted, when he was playing for Regina, he like won puck battles and like was good down low and used his brilliant shot. We haven't seen it quite as much in the NHL yet. I wish he'd shoot more. There are times where I do think he defers a little bit too much. If we see him start shooting more, though, we will see the points rack up. Again, being a winger is not a bad thing. It creates a hole on the roster, like long term, if that were the case. But it's not like right now there's any pressing need to like get him on the wing because they're trying to make the playoffs either. You keep him at center until you figure out for sure. Again, this is a take that is just kind of like popped in my head. Like I thought about it, and I'm like, it's a maybe. It's not. It's like a light maybe. Like, I still lean long term on him being a center. It's just one of those things where I'm like, that shade of doubt creeps in here and there. When you're looking at it objectively, that's not a knock on him in any way, shape, or form. I think he is generational. Mm-hmm. I really do. And again, you look at a guy like McKinnon. In the first handful of years of Nathan McKinnon's career, his offensive production wasn't even close to what Connor Bedard's has been already. And that's saying something, because I think McKinnon is either the second best or third best player in the league right now. In his first couple years, McKinnon's points, he had 63 as a rookie, right? Calder Trophy winner. Then in year 2, he dropped down to 34. 34. And then in year 3, I'm looking 38. Sorry, 38 points. And then in year 3, he had 52. And in year 4, he had 53. And like, 52 and 53 are not terrible point totals, but for the number 1 overall pick coming out of the Halifax Mooseheads, like supposed to be like this next great star in the league, that's not what you're necessarily looking for.
Usually takes like 3 or 4 years.
And then in 2017-18, McKinnon had 97 points, and then 99, and then 93, and last year he had 140, and the year before that he had 111.
I just think it takes time. And we're seeing that with some of the players on the Minnesota Wild, too, who are coming into their 3rd and 4th year. We'll talk about that.
Absolutely. Now, the difference between McKinnon and Bedard, McKinnon's huge. Bedard's a small guy. Like, he's probably my height. I walked right past him when they were playing hallway soccer the other day, and he and I are, like, at eye length. Like, perfectly. I know when you're on skates, you're a little bit bigger, but so are your opponents. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how he'll grow into his body for sure. I'm not a knocker on size at all. I think that's really overblown a lot of the time. Sometimes it could be the difference of being a center or a winger, but we'll see how it goes. With that, I still think he'll be a 120-point guy in the long term. And he might even crack 100 this year. He's on pace for 82 right now, I think. But a couple of near misses in the last couple of games, that projection would be even better. He kept getting robbed by Lankinen against the Canucks. Like that line was crazy. I don't really understand why Luke Richardson thought Game 7 was an opportunity to bench Kurashev to send a message. Like it made no sense to me because he's still really good defensively, and that's usually when you bench guys. Is when they're poor defensively, but you benched him because the offensive numbers aren't there. Well, nobody's offensive numbers are there really, except for Bedard and Teravainen. So, like, I just don't get why Kurashev, who was your second best forward last season, to me, it's not close. I know Dickinson and Foligno had nice years. Kurashev was their second best forward last season, and you're benching him in game number 7? Like, what? I really didn't understand that. Didn't love that move, but we'll see how it goes tonight against Nashville. You've got to be looking forward to this one. Everybody can watch it too, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, you know how I feel about the Predators. It's a big division game. Predators kind of slumping, but maybe they got their groove together, got their first win against the Bruins. This team could be scary, the Predators, when they're cooking on all cylinders. So we'll see. I'm excited, though.
I am too. I want to tell you a funny story relating to the Blackhawks before we move on to the Devils. So on opening night against the Sharks, I'm trying to get in the building, and the gate that media is supposed to enter was blocked by the red carpet stage. Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's not opening till 5:30." I'm like, 5:30? It's like 3:20 right now. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm dressed in like nice clothes. I'm not even like fit to go stand by the red carpet. Like, I want to go inside and eat. And this guy who happened to be standing right there, he was wearing all NHL gear. And he was probably roughly our age, right? Like in his late 20s, early 30s. And he goes, "Here, I'll take you around. I'll get you in." And he brings me to the other side of the mausoleum. And we go in through there. And he helps me get in front. And I'm like, "Dude, you are literally like an angel the way you saved me from having to stand there like a dweeb for 2 hours." And I didn't see him again. That was the last time I saw him until last game against the Vancouver Canucks. And then I'm in the bathroom. They have a little bathroom up there. And once I'm done, I go to wash my hands. And who's washing their hands right there? This guy.
That's weird.
I'm like, holy crap. How you doing, man? And he ended up talking to me for like the entire intermission. We went back to a table and had a chat. He is the official scorer for every home game at the United Center. He decides, it is up to him whether or not somebody gets an assist, if it's their goal, shots on goal, all sorts of things. He is the official stat keeper of it. It is his job to make sure that those stats are put in and into the thing so it could pop on your phone as fast as possible. It is his job. And like, he was explaining to me the ins and outs of like what makes a guy get an assist, and like possession has a lot to do with it. Whether or not tell me if you heard this before, whether or not they made a hockey move. I literally told him, I'm like, it kind of has like a lot of language similar to football and what defines the catch. Did he make a football move before he secured the football? Like, and I was like, would you come on a podcast? And he's like, if my bosses are cool with it, absolutely. So don't be surprised if we have him on. But a great example was the Dickinson goal against Vancouver. Was it against Vancouver or the Sharks, that one? There was, I think
The Sharks, I think.
there was a
Right?
goal.
I don't
There was
remember
a
him
goal that
being
was
on
scored.
for
No,
Vancouver.
it was no. Then I'm thinking of the wrong one. It was against Vancouver. It was a game. Well, who scored the
I don't
Donato
think.
goal?
I
It
was gonna
was
say
the
I don't think
Donato goal.
Dickinson scored.
It was the Donato goal, the first goal of the game for the Hawks, that got them within one for like 2 seconds. It was initially unassisted. Gene Honda announced it as unassisted, and then he was telling me that there was something that Murphy did that like helped tickle the puck out of the whatever, and they ended up deciding to add the assist to Murphy. And if you go and look on the app now, it says that Murphy assisted on Donato's goal. So hearing the ins and outs of like what makes them decide it, because sometimes you just think like, oh, if they touched it. No, that's not how it works. If you like just act, if it goes off your ass and it's a complete accident, that's not what gets you an assist. Like just the ins and outs of it. I want to get him on so bad so he can come on and explain it so much better than me.
Isn't that crazy? Because it's different with goals. If it goes off your ass accidentally, it's your
Exactly.
goal. So
Exactly. The
It's
language, yeah, we need to get him on. I want you and the fans to hear it from his mouth because he'll obviously explain it a lot more eloquently than me because he knows it
get 'em
so
on.
much better. But yeah, it's really cool. And tonight, John Buccigross and AJ Malesko are calling the game, so I'm hoping to find Bucci popping around the press box a little bit, grabbing some
That'd be sick.
popcorn. I could be like, Bucci, what's up, man? You came on the show and you gave me a shout out during the Frozen Frenzy. Did you see that?
Yeah,
It's
that's
crazy.
cool.
So crazy. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully the Hawks are able to, if they beat the Predators and go 2-2-0 at home, I guess nobody's really going to complain about that.
I know the Preds are playing bad, but I don't think it's going to be easy.
Well, I wrote for the Hockey News that they're catching the Preds at a bad time, in my opinion. I would have rather them
agree.
lose to the Bruins and still have, and it's not just like a win they got over the Bruins. They like beat the Bruins. They like outshot them 2-1. Saros got a shutout. Stamkos scored. Like it was everything you need from the Predators if you're gonna like break a slump. And now is kind of feeling like, oh, they're here. That's the Preds we thought they'd be, and now they play the stinky Blackhawks. Like I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I don't like the matchup in terms of it. They got them at a bad time. So if they win, it's a good win. In the same exact opposite direction, you could say they got a win over the Predators after what they did to the Bruins. I think that's so good. So yeah, Frank, we could touch quickly on the Devils. They started off 5-2-1, and now they're 5-4-1. Or 5-2-0, and now they're 5-4-1. Little bit of a tough skid that they're on after the hot start. Really, my only takeaway is you got shit on by Washington, and you still found your way in overtime 5-5. And then Tom Wilson made a nice play to score the OT winner. Then against Tampa Bay on the Frozen Frenzy, they got beat in every way, shape, or form. I don't even know how they scored 5 goals because they were truly terrible. They deserved to lose that game 10-0. It was the worst I've seen the Devils play, since like maybe last year. And then against Detroit yesterday, they destroyed them. Mm-hmm. They outshot them to hell. I think it was close to 3-1 outshooting them. I think Detroit ended with like 16 shots on goal. Jack Hughes looked amazing. He's sure just putting the team on his back so far. He might be one of the league's top 10 scorers this season, the pace he's on right now. Meyer looks healthy, big, mean, strong. Bratt looking good. Hamilton's back. Luke Hughes and Pesci were back in the lineup yesterday. It was a perfect Devils game. And Markstrom looked like Vitek Vanacek. Like, are you kidding me? Like, are you serious right now? You gave up 4 goals on 16 shots, and the skid continues because of you. It was the deserve to win meter that, like, it's. I think Money Puck. It was either Money Puck or Evolving Hockey. One of those has the deserve to win meter, and the Devils had 91% deserve to win. That's the highest I've ever seen the scale in a loss ever in my entire time watching hockey and covering it from like an analytical perspective.
It's tough.
I cannot believe they lost to Detroit yesterday. That's the worst loss maybe I've ever seen them have because Markstrom channeled his inner Swiss cheese Vitek Vanacek Akira Schmid type terrible goaltending that they had last year. It was strictly because of him that they couldn't end the skid. And if they win yesterday, they're 6-3-1, feeling good. Like now you're 5-4-1, which is still like not terrible. They're in a playoff spot. The Metro does not scare me at all. But like, ew, dude, you need to be better, Markstrom. That's my takeaway from the Devils. Because if they play the way they played against Detroit yesterday for the rest of the season, they'll be like one of the top 10 teams in the league, top 5 maybe.
Yeah, that was a tough loss. I
Yeah,
mean,
horrible.
they've had some tough losses this season so far. But for the most part, I don't hate what they've been doing for the season as a whole. 5-4-1. Yeah, they're second in the Metro right now. The only problem is they do have 3 or 4 more games played than everybody around them because of that global series against Buffalo. But Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt. I've always said they're the 3-headed beast on offense. It's always been that in my eyes, right? Even with Timo Meyer there, I think Hischier, Hughes, and Bratt, they're the 3-headed beast. And they've all been contributing at a high level to start the season so far. So I think that's a good sign. I think that they're right on pace to be kind of where you'd think they'd be this at this point starting the season. Maybe a little better, maybe that 6 win, maybe a 6-3-1 or a 6-2-2. But I think 5-4-1 is nothing to fret about, and I think they could get back to form like we saw them a couple years ago. I think they'll be fine in the long run. I really do. It's just if you play like they did last game, long term, where that deserved a win meters at 91%, you're gonna win 90% of games, maybe even more. So, I mean, yeah, they got the loss. It was a tough loss, but I think in the long run, you continue to play with that much zest, and the vibes are there. The vibes are there. The Devils are gonna have a good year.
Absolutely. I'm not like worried. I can't, like, if Markstrom has a bad year, they're toast. So he has to play better. Allen has to play better. Allen wasn't terrible against the Lightning. I know he gave up 8. It really wasn't his fault. The Devils were terrible. The Lightning just hemmed them in their zone. They were in the zone. Hagel with his hat trick. Every single goal he scored was like him being a little pest in front of the net, and the Devils just couldn't stop him. Hedman scored twice, walking in untouched. I think Igor would have given up 8 if the Devils were playing like that in front of him. I really, really do. It was terrible. And then Washington, their offense was good enough to squeak out a point in that game, and they were just as terrible against Washington as they were against Tampa. They got it right yesterday against Detroit. They have to play better tonight against the New York Islanders. Like,
Markstrom will be fine. We'll be fine. Like, and the one thing I said with the Devils, they need a goaltender. Don't blow this opportunity because you finally got one.
Yeah. Well, 2 days ago, it was hardly the goal, or 2 games ago, it was hardly the goalie's fault. And yesterday was entirely the goalie's fault. I believe if any other goalie in the league were playing for the Devils yesterday, they would have won. I mean, to outshoot them 40-something to 16 and lose 4-3. And, Patrick Kane, awesome goal to get them ahead. That's 2 game winners in a row for Kaner. Good on him. I'm happy for him on an individual level in Detroit. Fun team. Hopefully, so far they've been kind of boring and mid, but like we'll see what that turns into. But don't love bad goaltending leading to losses already. Like, what is going on? This team's offense. He 2 goals again. Like, he's just been unbelievable. He might score freaking 40 if he keeps this up. And, I've always been a big believer in Nico's offensive upside. It's just a matter of whether or not he wants to produce points more than, give up a little bit of the defense. So far this year, it's been both. It's been absolutely both. He's winning faceoffs at like a Devils all-time great clip. The block shots, defensive-minded, still putting up the offensive numbers. Jack Hughes is really coming along too. Like, he had a little bit of a slow start with, offensive numbers and, kind of getting it going a little bit. He's going again. So they're deep down the middle. That's one thing that's not a problem for them, and it's a lot of teams' biggest problem. So we'll see what happens going forward. But yeah, last night is disturbing. That's really, really disturbing. All right, Frank, we're going to move on to some other NHL chatter in period number 2. Welcome to period 2. We will start with Sidney Crosby. Frank, Crosby's my favorite player that never played for the Devils. I think everybody knows that. I used to say my favorite non-Devil was Zach Parise, but like he played for the Devils. My favorite player to never play for the Devils is Sidney Crosby. And I've loved watching him for all these years. My favorite era of all time, I'll be 50. I'll be 50's, it's only 20 years away. Ew. When I'm 80, I will still talk about the Crosby, Ovechkin, Malkin, Kane era as my favorite. I wholeheartedly believe that. We're almost done with it. It's really, we'll get kind of emotional with it when the time comes. But Crosby, 1,600 points. Just an absolutely unbelievable player. I'm a proponent. I want him to get 700, 1,300, 2,000 points. It's going to be close. I'm not as set on that as I am on other monumental records that are coming up here in the next couple years. But 1,600 points with missing 2 full seasons because of concussion back when he was in his early 20s, he'd probably really be on pace for that 2,000 mark if he played through those years and got 85 to 100 points in those years. But I'm really happy to see what Crosby's doing and how well he's playing so far. 1,600 points for Sid the Kid, who's no longer a kid.
Yeah, it's a hefty milestone, right? It's a hefty milestone. Not the only milestone, but in that game. But yeah, it's a hefty milestone for Sid the Kid. I mean, what a career this guy's had. And he's still producing. The production a little bit in terms of goals have gone down this year so far. We don't know. It's too early to call how the rest of the season goes. But, I mean, what a milestone. To get 1,600 points in the NHL is, I think, every kid's hockey dream to do. It's not easy. It's very, very, very hard to do. Got to stay healthy. Got to be consistent. And that's what Sidney Crosby's done his entire career.
Absolutely. And Malkin also got a point on the goal that Crosby scored, or on the assist that made Crosby at 1,600 career points. Crosby also assisted on Evgeni Malkin's 500th career goal. Gino, if I can redraft every player from 2005 to 2015, I know I'm an Ovechkin bootlicker. I would take Malkin second behind Crosby in that era. I think Malkin is the second best player from that era. I would put Ovechkin third and Kane fourth. I might put Taves fifth. I'm really high on Taves, obviously. But Malkin, sensational, 500 goals, one of the most underrated players in NHL history. Super stoked to see him get that milestone.
48th player in NHL history to score 500 goals. And I also meant to say Crosby's the 10th player in NHL history. Only 10 players have gotten 1,600 points, which shows you how hard it is to do. I thought it was cool. Like you said, Crosby assisted on Malkin's 500th goal. Back in 2022, when Crosby scored his 500th goal, Malkin provided the assist. Isn't that crazy? It's kind of poetic, as I like to say. They did it for each other.
Yeah, and they don't play together 5-on-5, which is
it's crazy. So I thought that was really cool there, and Malkin, Crosby, Ovechkin, Stamkos, they're the only active players with 500 goals. And 2 of those players have played on the same team for nearly 2 decades. So it's crazy to think about having both those players on the same team for so long. They brought 3 Stanley Cups over. They continue to make history with one another for, like I said, almost 2 decades. It's been great. And both players are off to a slow start in terms of goals, but the production's been there so far this season. So the team, as a team, kind of what we expected, right? Not great so far. That's kind of what I would expect out of the Pittsburgh Penguins, but congrats to them on making history in the same game once again. To me, that it's still boggling to think about that they got the assist on the 500th goal for each of them. It's crazy.
Yep, and they both play the same position.
What?
Pretty wild. It's pretty wild. Well, Sid and Gino, we've been blessed to watch you for all these years. Super thrilled. I hope the Penguins are at least fun for the whole year. The Penguins, the fact that they're not complete dog crap, though, should make Stan Bowman, everybody who was in charge of the Blackhawks during that era, ashamed of themselves, because they're just now starting to fall off, and the Hawks have been rebuilding for close to 10 years now, while the Penguins remained competitive and kept their stars on their team and stayed loyal to them instead of kind of shoving them out the back door. Frank, was I wrong about the Minnesota Wild?
I think so. I foresaw this. Not this. I first foresaw an improved Wild team. Now, maybe they're off to a much better start than I would have thought, but I'm not surprised by this at all, right? Kirill the Thrill looks hungry for another 100-point season. That's a pace he is for on now, and he would shatter his 108-point career best season from a couple of seasons ago. Also, Matt Zuccarello, he's dipping his toes, both of them, in the fountain of youth at age 37. 12 goals all of last year. He's already got 4 this year. That type of production out of your top veteran player is going to go a long way, VP, when you have tons of other young talent surrounding you on this team. And speaking of young talent, Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, they've been exceptional. These are young guys, and I said this earlier in the first period, who are stepping in to their 3rd and 4th full season with the team. Boldy, now he's got 200 plus games. Rossi's got over 100 games played with the team. They've gotten their feet wet in the NHL, and it goes to show you what a couple years can do. The Wild young stars are starting to come out and play for real. And not to mention, maybe the biggest X factor of the Wild season so far is I was a year too soon on Philip Gustafsson to win the Vezina. I thought last season he was going to win it. Jinxed him maybe a little bit. If he keeps doing what he's doing, this is the year Gustafsson wins the Vezina. Off to an unreal start. 140 goals against, 952 save percentage is unreal. And they've yet to lose a game in regulation. So to answer your question, you were wrong.
Big time. And I'm happy about it. I love the Wild. The Wild will always have a special place in my heart. I've been to Minnesota. I've done the game. I did the Stadium Series, wore my Wild jersey. I love the Wild. I hope they continue. Kirill Kaprizov's amazing. I love Boldy. I love the American guys who came up through the development program on the same team as Jack Hughes. Zuccarello, Fountain of Youth. Love that. Marco Rossi. Listen, I'm wrong about a lot of draft things. I'm also right about a lot of draft things. One of the things I was right about, I wanted the Devils to take Rossi so bad, 7th overall in 2020, and they took Alexander Holtz. I can dig up tweets. I wanted Rossi so bad, and people push back on me because Rossi was a center, and I'm like, okay, so Rossi can play wing, or. Yeah. What is the harm? And I don't get why having a good third line center is a bad thing. Why does every third line center have to be some dummied down checking center? Why can't he sure could be that dummied down checking center if need be and still put up 80 points? Yeah. What's the matter with it? Rossi, I just couldn't. I was so mad. Why would Hughes, Hischier, Rossi as your 3-headed center monster be offensive? Why is that a problem? Why do you have to, sometimes the best player is just the best player. They went with Alexander Holtz, and they ended up trading him to Vegas for Cotter. And Cotter's been a great bottom 6 forward. They got something out of Holtz at least, which is nice. But I was, and Holtz, he was sick. He had the bad kind of COVID. That if he were 80 years old, it probably would have but he was in the hospital for a very long time. He was in trouble with his COVID in his draft year, and he recovered. He's back, and now he's one of the Wild's top contributors. So go Wild. Hopefully they keep this up. I'd like to see them make a statement in the Central Division. A team that's kind of near and dear to our hearts for obvious reasons, but they kind of go in the opposite direction. Do the Boston Bruins stink?
No, the short answer is no, right? And I had this conversation with Joey yesterday. This is an 82-game season, not a 17-game season like the NFL. There's still plenty of time to turn things around. Look at the Edmonton Oilers last season with their pitiful start. You almost basically were done on them. You pronounced them dead. They're 1 win away from winning the Stanley Cup at the end of the season, right? Now, is this one of the worst starts to the Bruins have had in recent memory? Absolutely. The past 3 games, they've struggled to score goals. 3 goals in their past 3 games. They got shut out against the Nashville Predators. They've also been taking a lot of penalties that have been leading to goals, right? The Stars scored 3 power play goals against the Bruins last night. You can't be taking penalties if your penalty kill hasn't been up to par this season, right? You look at the net. Jeremy Swayman hasn't been terrible. The team in front of Swayman has been bad. Korpisalo, on the other hand, he's been shaky. He's only played 2 games. He had a terrible start in his first game. But even in the only win he has of the season, Korpisalo, the other game, I forgot who it was against. He was bad. He was bad. He had a bad save percentage. Pucks were going in that shouldn't. That's the only thing you got to worry about, right? And that's the big thing they have to overcome this year because they don't have that 1-2 punch of Swayman and Allmark this season. They're used to having 2 starting caliber goalies where one is the backup or they split time every other game. That's something the Bruins are going to have to get used to this season is not having that. But no, the Bruins don't need to panic this early on in the season.
I want to agree. I'm worried. Pasternak, he'll get going. He'll score. He's already got a couple. Like, he's fine. Brad Marchand is not impactful. He's been, like, bad. And he had 3 surgeries in the offseason. He's been hurt the years prior coming into the year. Remember that one year he didn't start till November? Yeah. The injuries are adding up for Brad Marchand. You wonder if he lost a step a little bit. I hope not, but it kind of seems that way. I don't love their center depth. I never loved their center depth. They signed Elias Lindholm. He's been really good so far. Is it going to be that good all season long? Maybe. We'll see. If him and Pasternak can keep it going all season long, that'd be great. I like their D. Their D's big. They got a lot of big boys over there. I don't like that freaking Korpisalo has to play like a fair amount of games this year. That's a problem. I don't know. I look at the Atlantic Division. I see Florida. I see Toronto. I see Tampa. I see the Bruins. I don't know if one of those trio of that triangle of teams trying to break the curse between Detroit, Buffalo, and Ottawa, if one of them find their way in, it's possible. No. Montreal stinks. They'll come in last. But the Bruins, they're kind of going to be right there on the bubble. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs if they got in at all. But I don't know. I'm worried. I haven't fully hit the panic button, but it's hovering over it.
I just think it's too early, you know?
I just don't love the way they've looked.
The Korpisalo thing is going to be an issue, right? I think if he doesn't get his shit together, I think there's other backups in the league. Now, I don't think the Bruins would trade for a backup goalie. I don't foresee that at any point in time this season, unless he was horrendous. So I just think this is something they're going to have to deal with, and he's going to have to get his shit together at some point this season. Because I don't see them making that move. I think there's other moves that need to be made, offensively if things don't start clicking. But I just think it's too early. We went through this with the Oilers last year, right?
Yeah.
Let's not make that same mistake.
We did, but each of the last 2 years, we came into the year thinking the Bruins might take a slight step back, and then they started 6-1-0. 2 years ago, they win the President's Trophy, have the best season ever in terms of wins, points, and everything else. And then last year, they didn't quite have 128 standings points, but they had over 100 points, won a playoff round, and then were competitive against Florida. I think Florida's in their head a little bit. That's one thing to hold their head on. The teams they've lost to so far, 2 of the 4 teams they've lost to so far, 2 of them are to Florida, 1 of them's Dallas. And then the other was Nashville, who a lot of people came into this year thinking they could be a power. So we'll see how that goes for them, but I'm not out on them making play or being a competitive team this year at all, but the early returns have me a little bit worried. All right, Frank, we're going to move on and discuss a couple things from a couple other sports to wrap up the show, and we will do that in period number 3. The top 10 NFL teams according to Vinnie and Frank. Frank, hit me with number 10 and 9. Or just 10.
Number 10. They finally made it onto the list, VP. Shocking. First time they've made it on the list since we've been doing rankings back to last year. I have the Chicago Bears at number 10. They've gotten better after each game this year. Picking this 10th team was very, very tough. I sat there and stewed on it for a good 20 minutes, deciding who deserves to be number 10, right? I take this seriously. The tiebreaker for me is how hot the Bears are right now. They've won 3 games in a row. They're undefeated at home. And like I said, they've gotten better each week. To me, that deserves a top 10 spot. This game against the Commanders this week will really solidify where I see the Bears going the rest of the season. it should be a fantastic game Sunday afternoon. And if Jaden Daniels ends up playing because he's questionable, the Bears are going to have their hands full. But I got the Bears at number 10.
I also have the Chicago Bears at number 10. Pumped about it, obviously. The reason I don't put them higher is because of, they haven't beaten too many quality opponents. And I'm sorry, if Jaden Daniels doesn't play, and it doesn't seem like he's going to, he hasn't practiced at all this week, and they had 3 guys working out at quarterback today. I seriously would be stunned if Daniels plays at this point, which sucks for the TV networks because they flex the Bears to 305 or 310, and they got Nance and Romo calling the game now for the Bears to play against Marcus Mariota. Like,
Bears need to win that game.
Do feel bad. Well, I think they needed to win even if Daniels played, because Daniels, he's a one check down, or he's a one read quarterback. Like, he decides who he's throwing to in the huddle and then throws it to them. The Bears defense is very good at stopping those types of situations, and he hasn't faced a defense quite like the Bears yet. And then Washington's defense is terrible. Everybody stouts this Washington Commanders team like they're so great. They're good. They're really good. I have them ranked 12th out of 32, but their defense is not good. I think the Bears should be able to eat them up. So I got the Bears at 10. At number 9, I have the Green Bay Packers. Again, another team that I think I could have higher. I just don't love how much Jordan Love has turned the football over so far this season. He's thrown a lot of interceptions. And he's basically like Diet Brett Favre out there. When he's great, he's on. He's also throwing a lot of picks. So is that going to be the downfall of the Packers once the playoffs roll around? Is he going to throw a big interception in the worst possible time? It's very, very possible. I would almost consider it likely right now based on my evaluation. But the rest of the team around him and him when he's not throwing interceptions have been really, really good. I have Green Bay at 9.
My number 9, I got the Pittsburgh Steelers, another new addition to the list. A lot of people expected the Jets to beat down the Steelers last week with Devontae Adams reuniting with Aaron Rodgers, but Russell Wilson back. They dismantled the Jets and put a halt to that Packers reunion in New York. I got to admit, the Steelers looked really, really good. And with Russell Wilson, and I was kind of a little skeptical on him coming into this year and seeing what he'd do. He looked great. And the Steelers got a great defense, and they're once again off to a great start under Mike Tomlin. So, Steelers at 9. Number 8, this was because of their loss last night. I got the Minnesota Vikings. They dropped to 8th because they've now dropped back-to-back games. This was an eye-opener for the Vikings. I think the Vikings are going to come down to earth a little bit. The past 2 weeks, they've been competitive, but their defense is just not there. Sam Darnold has just not been as dominant. Through the first 4 weeks, he was the touchdown leader. It's come down a little bit. You're seeing that change, the course of a 17-game season, the ebbs and flows of what's going to go on, the goods and the bad, and he's coming down to earth a little bit. The whole team, I think they're a good team. We see the flashes of offense, but the defense to me is not there, and things are getting a little shaky for them. Now the Rams are healthy, but Vikings at 8.
Very good. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8. They continue to, it was a kind of a tough loss to the Baltimore Ravens, who are obviously probably pretty high on everybody's list for the most part. But I still think the Buccaneers are one of the top teams in the NFC South. And they're going to be able to get a fair amount of wins and be a playoff team. And I have them ranked at number 8. It's going to be tough without Godwin, though.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. The fact that his shoes were like this, and that's, your ankle's not supposed to bend that way. That was gross. At number 7, I have the Atlanta Falcons. They just recently had a tough loss as well. The NFC South had a little bit of a tough weekend, but I still think the Atlanta Falcons, I just can't quit them. I look at that roster, I'm like, I cannot quit this team. I still think they're going to win the NFC South. Either them or Tampa Bay. One of those two is going to win the division. The other, Frank, listen, I love you with all my heart. You're one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. But I think that's your worst take ever on this show.
Could be.
They're like the Saints. I'm like, the Saints. And I even asked a couple people I know the football. I'm like, and I didn't bring you up. I would never disrespect you or anything. But I'm like, the Saints. Did I miss something? The Saints? They're closer to and this was me in week 1. I'm like, they're closer to firing their coach than they are making the playoffs, right? Yeah. And that was in week 1. Oh, they're 2-0. Okay, now Frank's going to be all up on his high horse because they're 2-1. Because everybody, or 2-0. You can't go by the first 2 games. I'm like, the Saints. glad we cleared that up. um,
Ugh.
yeah. So Falcons and Buccaneers, we'll see. But yeah, that's my 8 and 7.
My 7 is the Green Bay Packers. They've won 3 in a row, 5 of the last 6 games. The kicker here is the Packers defeated the Texans, which was their first quality opponent that was over 500. Other than that, there really hasn't been too many impressive wins or things about the Packers this season. On paper, they should have another easy win this week against the Jaguars. We shall see how that goes moving forward. Don't love what I see from the Packers, but they're winning. Packers at 7. Number 6, I got the Washington Commanders. I got to be honest with you. They're the most improved team from last year. Jaden Daniels have helped turn this team around, right? They're one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL. They even played the Ravens tough, despite they lost only by 1 score. I think this team has a ton to learn, but they're fun to watch, and they've been fun in games this season and exciting. And I don't know. I like what I see from the Washington Commanders. We'll see how it goes, depending on how long Jaden Daniels is out. But for right now, I got them at 6.
Very, very good. At number 6, I have the Buffalo Bills. Can't quit the Bills. Do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. Do they stink against good teams? Mostly. Do I trust them in big situations? Nope. Do I expect them to blow out every other team besides the teams ahead of them on the list? Yes, I do. Josh Allen, him and Lamar are like 1 and 2 in the MVP candidates right now. Mahomes is cooked in that conversation. But
He's kind
Josh,
of stuck from Holmes.
they don't have a passing touchdown in October. Buffalo, they destroy everyone they play that's like a mid or bad team. And then they get in these games against good teams like Baltimore and Kansas City, and they can't beat them. I don't even think Mahomes needs to play that well. They're the Panthers. The Chiefs are the Panthers, and the Bills are the Bruins. They just can't. That's just not happening. The Bills can win the Super Bowl if they don't play the Chiefs or the Ravens in the playoffs, but they probably will have to play one of those two to get it done. Prove me wrong, Bills. I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl. If I could pick any AFC team to win the Super Bowl this year, I would pick the Bills because I think they're so fun. I just don't see it. Number 5, I have the Minnesota Vikings. They played yesterday, and they were 5 on my list going into the game, so I didn't lower them because they lost to the Rams. I still think they're a really good team, and the Rams are better than people think. Where did I have the Rams ranked coming into this week? I had the Rams. I guess I had the Rams pretty low. I had them at 24. But, I mean, when you have Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp came back and Puka Nakua's there again, it's a good Rams team. They'll probably rise 5 or 6 spots in my ranking coming into next week. They'll for sure be in the teens. But the Vikings, I still think the NFC North has too much aura for them to, completely fall off a cliff, and they'll be fine the rest of the way. They're going to be a tough team, basically for the rest of the season.
I think they're a tough team. I wouldn't be surprised if they just shit the bed the rest of the year. Not completely.
What is shit the bed?
I'm not saying like 5 and 12, but like I would say shitting the bed would be an 11 and 6. You started out 6 and 0, and you shit the bed the rest of the way.
Yeah, and you're still like
you went like under 500 the rest of the year.
You still probably win the NFC North with that record.
But you're still having a good year, but they shit the bed. They're coming down to earth a little bit. I strongly believe that, and I believe that will carry into the playoffs, and I don't think they make a deep postseason run.
I agree with that.
So that's where I got number 5. I got the Houston Texans. They really haven't taken their foot off the gas since last season. They end the season on a high. They started this season on a high. They're 5 and 2. Only 2 losses have come against quality opponents. They have a quality win over the Bills on their resume. This team may be a bit high on my list to some viewers watching, especially coming off of a loss. I understand. But their defense is really what shines in crunch time. They have 4 wins by 1 score or less, which says a lot because those games could have gone the other way. They could be 2 and 5 if those 1-score games have gone the other way. But their defense didn't allow that to happen. And kind of like what you said about the Falcons, about not giving up on that team, this team's pretty good. I like what I see. I truly do. The addition of Stephon Diggs, I always bring that up when I talk about the Texans. It's really helped. Nico Collins is a dog VP that you say. I like this Houston Texans team. They come in at number 5. Number 4, I got the Detroit Lions. Lions went into Minnesota and gave their division rivals their first loss of the season, came on the road. The Lions are now in sole possession of first place in the NFC North. Jared Goff, he's been exceptional. Their only loss coming against the Buccaneers in week 2. Since then, the Lions have been one of the best teams in the NFL. They show no signs of slowing down.
Frank, I'm with you on the Houston Texans. I have them at 4. There's no reason to quit them. They lost to Green Bay. Green Bay's in my top 10 too, and I said Green Bay should probably be higher. I would raise them if Jordan Love gets better at the turnovers. If he stops throwing interceptions from this moment forward, I will raise them. And I think it's possible. I don't think Jordan Love is like this historic interception machine, just so far this year he has, and that's the but like it's a quality win for Green Bay to go beat Houston. And they made the Bears I hung my head after that loss thinking like, oh, well, the Bears had a chance to beat this current Bears team with the way Williams is playing now would have beat the Texans if the Texans played the way they did in that game. I do believe that, but they're still a really good team. I think they're one of the best in the NFL. Wouldn't shock me if they play in the AFC title game and lose to either Baltimore or Kansas City.
You just don't see too many teams on our list go up after a loss. That's why it's like,
They fell on my list from last week because I do this every week for Bears Wire. I'm just reading off my Bears Wire list. I had them at 3 last week, and they're down to 4 now. And the team I had 4 last week is at 3 now, the Baltimore Ravens, who got a really nice win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They should feel thrilled about that game. Lamar had a bad first game of the year against the Chiefs because the Chiefs in a lot of ways are like what I said about the Bills to the Ravens too. I believe in the Ravens a little more come playoff time, I think, than the Bills. But still, when they play the Chiefs, it'll be a prove it to me. Until you do, I'm picking the Chiefs. But Lamar Jackson, he's right there with Allen as the favorite to win the MVP again. He's incredible. His arm is getting better. He's throwing better. He still runs like a maniac. He's smarter about the way he runs, though. He doesn't take these obliterating hits every single week anymore, like he used to back when he was a little more injury prone. It's because he's gotten smart and he doesn't want to be injured anymore. And the Ravens don't want him to be injured anymore because he's so good. So I have the Baltimore Ravens at 3. I love what they do. It wouldn't shock me if they make one medium-sized trade at the trade deadline on November 5th.
Yeah, Derrick Henry's been great.
Oh, and Derrick Henry. Between Henry and Lamar, it's the best rushing attack in the NFL, and I'm not sure if anyone other than the Chiefs front is going to be able to stop.
I was scared about that coming in the year. I'm like, oh, Ravens got Derrick Henry. Whew.
Yeah.
Number 3, I got the Buffalo Bills. They fell 1 spot on my power ranking this week. They've gotten back on track after back-to-back losses. They've now won back-to-back games. Both the Bills losses this year came against quality opponents. Now, they did get dismantled in those losses, right? But both of those teams they lost to are in my top 5 on my power rankings. The team's offense is more spread out than ever before. The addition of Amari Cooper is a great fit. Rookie Keon Coleman has been great. Josh Allen is not trying to feed the ball to Stephon Diggs all the time. Got rid of him, spread out the offense a little bit. He's got more options. That gives him more weapons. The Bills look tough, and I like what I've seen from their defense the past couple of weeks. That's improved a little bit over the past 2 weeks. It's showing signs or shades of the first few weeks of the season where they're really good to start. Then I think a couple teams caught them at the right time, but I do think this Bills team can be elite. If they get the opportunity to beat the Ravens again, I want that payback. I think they could give them that payback from that beatdown. We'll see. Number 2 is the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are the hottest team in the NFL right now. It's not even close. Teams that start out 0-2 statistically have a 11.3% chance to make the postseason that same year. Ravens have won 5 games in a row, 5-2. Lamar Jackson makes a 3rd and 20 feel like a 3rd and 5. We've seen that for 3 weeks in a row now. The Buccaneers last week had Lamar 3rd and long. I can't even count how many times. And they were converting. They were converting every time. He's such a dynamic quarterback. He really is. Lamar Jackson, he's incredible. Great coaching staff. Ravens are a wagon.
I would rank him 2nd in the NFL right now. And this season, I would rank him 1st. 2, I have Detroit. I think Detroit is sick. I have a problem, though. I don't know how long they're going to last at 2. I have to see more because losing Aiden Hutchinson is
tough.
It's very, very bad. Do they trade for Max Crosby? Do they trade for Myles Garrett, okay, that would make me keep him at 2. Hutchinson statistically accounts for 50% of their all defensive totals. Sacks, pressures, everything. He accounts for about half. And that's crazy for one player. It's hard to lose for one player, but I think their overall roster construction is still the best in the NFC North, even without Hutchinson. And the NFC North is the best division in the NFL, which is why I rank Detroit number 2. At number 1, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 6-0, and they've played like crap. I don't understand this team. I told you at the beginning of the year, though, you can't bet against Kansas City. They're terrible against the spread. They basically win every game by 3, and they don't look particularly good until the fourth quarter in just about every game they play. I honestly think that's their strategy. Just keep the game within reach, and then we'll give all our effort in the fourth quarter. And they have that effort because they played like lazy, in the first 3 quarters. It's what it feels. I know that's not the case, but that's what it feels like. They dink and dunk on you for 3 hours. It's boring. It's not exciting. The Ravens are exciting. The Lions are exciting. Jared Goff to Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's incredible. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry running all over the field, that's incredible. Josh Allen with his big 50-yard throws, that's incredible. Patrick Mahomes doesn't really do that until need be, and he hits it every time he needs to, but he hasn't needed to most of this season. They're undefeated, and they're the most boring, frustrating, number 1 power-ranked team I've ever had to deal with in all my time watching football.
My number 1, yep, Kansas City Chiefs. They're the only constant in the NFL. They're the only undefeated team, but they get wins and they aren't pretty. But they're consistently winning. They don't always look the greatest. They don't always blow out their opponent, but they get the job done, and they do it consistently. There's not much else to say. They're the Chiefs.
I wonder, do you remember when the Royals won the World Series in 2015?
Yeah.
They played baseball the same way the Chiefs play football. Boring, bunt, single. They called it the Kansas City Special. I wonder if the owner of the Chiefs watched the Royals win the World Series that way, and he's like, "What's the football version of this?" Okay, let's get Andy Reid in here. We need Andy Reid. Oh, Patrick Mahomes can make the big throws, and he's just smarter than everybody, so he can win a football game like that. Okay, yeah, let's do it. Oh, this Kelsey guy, he's unbelievable. Oh, we need a good defense, though. Okay, draft Chris Jones. It's crazy to me what the Kansas City Chiefs have beaten. I'm not betting against them. Do I think they're going to three-peat as of right now? No. But am I going to bet against them too? No. I could absolutely still see them dinking and dunking their way to a third straight Super Bowl. It would not shock me at all. Oh, the Bills are so good. Oh, the Ravens are so good. You see the way Lamar and Josh Allen played this year? They're going to smoke the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And then the Chiefs win the AFC Championship game 20-13, and they freaking play against whoever the F in the NFC, and they win the Super Bowl in overtime because they won the coin toss and got lucky. It's just, that's it. It kind of feels like that's going to happen again because there's a lot of crap in the NFL right now. Most teams in the league are mid. Really, Kansas City, Detroit, Baltimore, Houston, Buffalo.
Yeah.
I look at the Falcons, the Vikings, the Buccaneers, the Packers, the Bears. Those are all good teams, right? But I don't think any of them are going to win the Super. Same thing with the Steelers. I would put the Steelers in there. Then you got teams like the Commanders, the Eagles, the Colts, the 49ers. The 49ers are so injured that I have them all the way down at 15. I think fully healthy, they're fine. I also think this is the start of the decline of the San Francisco 49ers because everybody's just getting old and injured, and they got to pay Brock Purdy, which he's going to make a lot of money, and I don't think he's like a game-breaking quarterback. Could win a Super Bowl with them, but, that's just how I feel. That's our top 10. You omitted the Falcons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and you added the Steelers and
the Steelers and
did
the
you
Commanders.
have? Oh, you had the Commanders. That's right. And it's funny, Frank. I have the Steelers 11 and the Commanders 12. like it's not even like a joke at all. You could read all. I don't know if it's going to pick it up with my background, but you can read all this stuff on thebearswire.com. My power rankings come out on Wednesday or Tuesday. It's either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on my schedule that week. But yeah, it's fun doing this. Are there any football games you're super excited for this weekend?
Well, the NFL, it's kind of meh this week, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bears, Commanders, Falcons, Bucks will be cool because it's a big divisional game.
Yeah.
It's a very important game. BYU number 11 at UCF. A lot of people are overlooking UCF because BYU is 7-0 and UCF's 3-4. I think that could be potential for game of the week, but I think the biggest college football game of the week is number 8 LSU and number 14 Texas A&M. That's the primetime game. I'm looking forward to it. Big college football playoff implications in that game.
Absolutely. I love it, Frank. In the SEC, I'm excited for Alabama to take on Mizzou. That'll be fun. NIU plays Ball State. I love the Intermac division matchups. That's just so fun to me. Notre Dame against Navy. Very, very fun. I almost want Navy to win because
I want both to be undefeated
and then play each other and one of them make the playoff. That would
That'd
just be
sick.
that would just be so cool. It would
Army,
be so
Navy,
cool.
undefeated battle.
Yeah. And then Illinois is playing Oregon, which is awesome because Oregon and Illinois are like their Big Ten rivals now. And that's just it's a game you wouldn't get unless it was the playoff any year before this year. So that's super cool. LSU, Texas A&M. Michigan plays Michigan State, which they would be on rivalry week if Ohio State didn't exist. Like, it's just the way the realignment has made the entire regular season in the NFL more fun has been cool to me, and I'm excited about it. So it's going to be very, very fun. I'm excited about it. Frank, give me a quick World Series prediction, and then we'll get into America's favorite podcast segment of the week.
Quick World Series prediction, Dodgers take it.
And how many games?
6.
Interesting. I have the Dodgers taking it in 5. I think the Dodgers are going to win the World Series in 5 games. I think I might be rooting for the Yankees, though. I don't know who I'm rooting for. But I think the Dodgers are going to take it in 5. Ohtani will be a World Series champion for the first time ever. Add that to his Hall of Fame resume. Frank, it's time for America's favorite podcast segment of the week, Breaking Bets.
Where's my money, bitch?
Frank, Breaking Bets.
If you followed my picks from 2 weeks ago, you went 3 for 3. We swept the board. This week, we got another 3 picks for you. No NHL picks this week. There's just nothing I like. I didn't want to force anything out there to you guys. I wanted to give you clean, crisp picks so we could try and go 3 for 3 once again. I will give a World Series pick for tomorrow's game. We got the Yankees at the Dodgers. Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty. A battle of 2 of the best teams in baseball across the country. Both teams with all-time great lineups. However, there's something about Garrett Cole in a huge game that doesn't make me want to trust him, right? And listen, this postseason has been great for him. The numbers prove that. The Yankees have the better pitching matchup 100% in this game. I just feel like most of the damage is going to be done off the long ball against Garrett Cole, and the Dodgers lineup is built for this type of matchup. This game could go either way, so we'll keep the units lower for this one. But I see this Dodgers lineup really doing damage against Garrett Cole. So we'll take the Dodgers money line at minus 125, bet to win 2 units. Now, a game I just mentioned in the third period. Number 8 LSU and number 14 Texas A&M. We're going to go with Texas A&M money line at minus 115. Bet to win 5 units. Prime time game of the week, 6:30 kickoff on Saturday night. The battle of the last 2 undefeated teams in SEC play. Both teams trying to hang on to a playoff spot. Texas A&M is on the outside looking in. A win here greatly increases their playoff dreams. This is going to be a very loud stadium. Both teams know what is at stake. I'm leaning towards Texas A&M because they have owned LSU on their home turf. The last time LSU has come in to Texas A&M and got a victory was back in 2016. Both of these teams are really, really solid, but there's something I like about the Aggies when they're playing at home. Texas A&M money line at minus 115, bet to win 5 units. And finally, a Sunday pick for all you NFL fans. We got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have found themselves in a bit of a groove. They won their last 2 games. Lost a close one to the Ravens in overtime 3 weeks ago. This game should be kept close and a very fun one. It appears the Bengals are slowly getting back to form. When fully healthy and playing at a high level, this Bengals team is one of the best in the business. They haven't shown that through the first 7 weeks, but they're starting to now. I think with the Bengals playing at home and their backs kind of against the wall, they should have the strength to come out on top in this one. A loss here puts them at 3-5, and their playoff hopes, they'd be tightening. I don't love this Eagles roster. I just think more momentum rides with the Bengals with them playing at home, and I like what I've seen over the course of the past 3 weeks. So I'm going to go with the Bengals money line, minus 148, bet to win 5 units. Let's sweep the board yet again.
Very, very good, Frank. Great show. Great breaking bets. I hope everybody enjoyed what they watched today. Make sure you tune into the rest of the shows here on the Barroom Network to catch up with everything going on in the NFL, the NBA, NHL, and MLB. The World Series starts tonight. Very excited about that. If you're at the United Center, enjoy the game against the Nashville Predators tonight. Very much looking forward to that. Seeing Steven Stamkos. I've seen Stamkos play live more than once. We'll get to see him again, this time in a Predators uniform. Super stoked about that. And make sure you're following me along with everything going on with the Blackhawks game tonight at Vinnie Parisi on Twitter, and the New Jersey Devils game. I'll be covering both from the United Center tonight, so very excited about that. And make sure you follow at the King Bean on Twitter, where you can find lots of updates on what's going on in the Survivor world. Frank, what?
Hold on.
Don't spoil the most recent Survivor episode.
Before we go, before Vinny sends us off, make sure to pick up your copy of Call of Duty Black Ops 6.
Yep.
The game is phenomenal. It has potential to be an all-time great. I'll say it right now.
I got NHL 25. I'll be getting Call of Duty. Then those will be my games for the winter. I can't show my phone with this background. So stupid. So stupid. Frank, thank you very much, as always, to everybody watching from at the King Bean and at Vinnie Parisi. Thank you for listening.